Hey everybody, this is Jesse B. Gilmore, agency transformation coach and founder of Niche in Control, creator of Leverage for Growth.
And I'm Lucas James, founder of Twiz.io, which scaled from $0 to $200,000 a month with my own agency.
We are the hosts of Leverage for Growth podcast agency leverage episodes. We know that in order to scale your agency successfully, there are multiple shifts that need to happen within the founder's mindsets, skill sets, and leadership styles. We are on a mission to interview marketing and PR agency owners on their journey to 6, 7, and 8 figures and leverage the lessons from their journey to save you time, energy, and money in order for you to get your agency to the next level. If you find value in these episodes, watch the case study video to learn more about Leverage for Growth and how we successfully scale agencies quickly at nicheincontrol.com/case study. That's nicheincontrol.com/case study. You are now listening to Leverage for Growth. Hey everybody, this is Jesse P. Gilmore, founder of Niche in Control and creator of Leverage for Growth. Welcome to the Agency Leverage Edition. Today I am here with Kate Ahl, the founder of Simple Pin Media, the leading Pinterest marketing agency on a mission to help you increase brand awareness, drive sales and conversions, and scale your business using Pinterest. Thanks for coming to our show today, Kate.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about the history and background of your agency?
Yeah. So 9 years ago, it was actually more like 9.5. I was with a friend. We were at a point in our family recovering from the recession. I had been working for her, doing some Facebook marketing, kind of affiliate marketing, getting my feet wet with that. And unemployment had dragged on for a while. My husband had lost his job and it was coming to an end. And I thought, what are we going to do? We're living on food stamps. I have 3 kids. I know this skill. I have a degree in political science. I always wanted to teach. That's not an option. So she said, well, I just watched a webinar about Pinterest marketing. And I know you've been doing a little dabbling with mine. Like, why don't you manage for people's Pinterest accounts? And I literally looked at her and said, like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Like, nobody's going to go for that. But right at the same time, Facebook was changing their algorithm away from kind of this open model with business pages. So this free traffic model was now going to move into this paid traffic model. And so all these people were saying, where did my traffic go and how I'm going to get it back? Well, because Pinterest was just 3 years old, there was still this open traffic model, right? So I thought, okay, well, I don't have any other options. Let's try it. So I looked into it and said, how could I manage? How could I be the person? How could I do what I was doing on Facebook and really drive traffic? And I tested it with her account and it was working. So I bought the domain Simple Pin Media, talked about packages and thought, well, what do people want? Like what would a business owner want from me? And I really didn't know. So she asked 3 friends to be beta clients at a super low cost. And they loved it. And it was like, okay, this is working. They told some friends, they told more friends. And then it kind of mushroomed into a business, I guess, which is, even though I had set it up as a business, got the LLC and all these things, I really didn't think it would go anywhere. But later that year in 2014, somebody recommended my business in an email newsletter. And when I say blowing up my email, I'm like 4 to 5, right? So it was like, oh my gosh, people are emailing me. And so I hired a coach and I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to run a business. So can you help me? And that kind of began the first part of my agency journey, which I don't even think I'd call it an agency then. It was service provider because I thought agencies are these big things in New York and they are fancy and I'm not fancy. I'm just a mom at home.
I love it. I love the humble beginnings and also the testing out in the market. I think one of the keys to starting a business is making sure that there's a demand for it and the proof of concept. So anybody that's listening that either is just about to start an agency, going through a very similar process is going to be beneficial.
Absolutely.
So you got your launch, you got paid clients, either the beta and kind of new clients. Talk a little bit about some of those milestones along the way leading up to where you are today.
Yeah, I would say probably one of the first milestones was this idea of having a team and the realization that as a single owner, if you're working one-on-one with clients, you can only go so far. You only have so much bandwidth. And so right into 2014, about 8 months, my oldest daughter was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which was like a really sudden diagnosis. I was in the hospital. I was trying to email clients and saying, here's where I'm at, while trying to deal with the grief of what was happening. And I thought, I need an emergency person, just somebody who can take over if this happens. And so I asked a friend, I was like, I'll teach you how to do this. Let's work through this and you can help me do this. And that sparked in me this love of team. I realized, oh, I'm really good at equipping other people with the skills to do this thing. And that could actually help me serve more clients. And so I hired a couple more people, always being sure that I looked at my profit margins. Was I still making money? And that, I think, catapulted me into 2015 when I hired a business coach when we were growing because there was a need in the market and I could easily figure out how to hire people. Now, I was obviously not effective at hiring. It really went something like this. Like, we met at Starbucks and I said, do you want to work for me? Like, here's what I do. Do you think this would be cool? And they were like, sure. And I wanted a local team. So I live in Portland. So Portland, Vancouver metro area. If we could meet in person, then we could also strategize, talk about things. And Zoom wasn't prevalent then. So it wasn't like you could do a lot of these video calls. So that was really the second lift of the agency, was allowing me to multiply myself and knowing that I really loved equipping and empowering people. And I tell service providers and agency owners all the time, like, if you don't love the idea of a team, that's okay. You just need to know that your agency might not scale on the same level because you can't be on the front lines as much as you were in the beginning. That's just like a natural progression.
Absolutely. And that is one of the hardest part is usually perfectionism, keeping people at the solopreneur and then being able to duplicate. During that time when you're doing the duplication, because I know that that's a huge piece and we can talk about client attraction and all that kind of stuff, but the duplication piece, what are some of the things that if you were to do it all over again, that you might pass on as kind of like ahas or like ways to kind of shortcut or don't do this instead? Does anything kind of come to mind?
Yeah, I would say probably one of those first things, which is just assuming people wanted to work for me. And it was more because I was desperate and I was like, not really a very formal process, which is interesting because I got really lucky and fortunate that a lot of those team members are still with me today and they've grown up through. I think what I would probably pass on to somebody is try to be formal in the beginning. I know it's hard because you don't have a lot of formalities and you don't know what you're doing. When I was growing my agency, there wasn't a lot of people talking about it that weren't super high level. There was a lot of digital marketing conversation, people selling courses, but there wasn't a lot of this, like how to be an agency owner service provider. So I didn't even hear about how to hire people. So I think if I was to do it now, it would be a lot more formal, not too formal, but just how do you relate with the person? And I think that was probably number one is, do our personalities mesh? Do we match? I also think too, there's a distinct difference between hiring somebody who's from corporate and hiring somebody who's potentially like a stay-at-home mom who maybe has a degree, but had kids and now they're coming back into the market. And somebody who has a corporate experience has a different expectation of a startup, right? Because their corporate comes with structure. A startup comes with build the plane as you fly it. And a lot of people who are from corporate can't handle that. So I think I would be more aware of where somebody's coming from, and that I didn't have that in my frame of reference. So that's a good piece of wisdom to pass on, is just what's their previous experience. And don't just look at, you want this breadth of experience because you're like, this person's going to be amazing. There's value in training up people in your system, especially if your system is not something that somebody can go out and buy, which is the case for me with Pinterest marketing. It was like, I had a proprietary process. I knew how I was doing things and I wanted to teach that. I didn't want to send them through a course.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. There's so many gems in what you just said. Okay, so now talking about the proprietary process and kind of niching, obviously I have a great passion for niches. What made obviously there was kind of like an external factor, Facebook's changes leading towards organic traffic. Within the service offering within Pinterest, was it always this? Do you always have the same services within Pinterest itself, or has that kind of evolved over time?
Yeah. Well, what's great actually is Pinterest has been a pretty slow moving platform. It's kind of a sleeper platform compared to all the rest, where Instagram, it was coming on the scene during that time, but it wasn't as prevalent as Facebook. Facebook, you had more of your name attached to it, whereas somebody could easily be someone else on Pinterest. So it didn't require this facial piece, or I mean, it does a little bit more now, but we can still manage it just as easily. But it felt like it was easy to look at the data and interpret what to do. And because the CEO over there for a long time, he's not the current CEO anymore, was much more of a slower moving CEO. You had things change less. Whereas on Facebook, it was don't write this, don't use a scheduler, do this. You didn't have that on Pinterest. You really had like three main components of consistency, keywords, because it's search and discovery, and images. And if you could get those things together, then we could remain pretty consistent, with the exception of them going from a chronological feed to an algorithmic feed, which obviously sets up for ads. But other than that, it was fairly easy to market on it as somebody else, which all the other platforms were just so difficult at the time to do that. So I also loved the fact that there were no comments. So you didn't have to worry about interaction with a community. And so then it also made it easier to be somebody's presence, because you didn't have to comment back to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, it seems like it's a good channel for a lot of different reasons, from consistency to being able to make it to where it's very focused.
Yeah.
So who's kind of like your ideal clients? So if anybody's listening and they're like, oh, I've never thought about Pinterest, who's kind of your ideal client these days?
So we would say top is a creator and second is e-commerce. And those fused together are actually the best, because Pinterest is fueled on really great content, because people want to read articles or they want to look for products. And when you have a client that has both of those together, they tend to work really well. These clients are usually focused on Google SEO. So Pinterest is a great sidestep because it has the same SEO component, search, except for it's with images. We have worked with some clients who do services, but we find that it's harder to convert a Pinterest user to say yes to your service, because there's so much more warm up involved. So we have people in the food space, or people in the DIY space, or the creator space of physical products like jewelry or beauty. Weddings obviously is pretty big as well, but we really try to focus on mainly if you have a creator component and an e-commerce component, that's like the magic happens at that point.
Awesome. So we've talked about a lot of different topics. If you were to give any advice, kind of looking back, I know you talked about the hiring part, but if you're to look at the whole experience of being an agency owner and looking back and giving some type of advice to somebody who might be one or two steps before you, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I think probably for me, one of the biggest traps midway was I was immersed in a community that was talking about digital marketing and courses. And so I felt this tension between services and selling courses. And I don't think I realized how different of models those were. So I thought, well, I'll grow my service side of my business, then I'll sidestep to also teaching Pinterest and we'll create a course. Well, that's a totally different lead source, right? And you're getting completely different. And so I wish I would have realized that a little bit sooner to immerse myself in more the agency owner service provider community, because we speak a different language. And I think also as I was growing up in this business, I saw a lot of digital course creators in their marketing using language that said, don't be a service provider, don't trade time for dollars, you come do this. And so I thought, well, am I doing something wrong here? And I think a lot of that just because I wasn't around other agency owners. And now that I am 9 years, almost 10 years in, I'm saying I want to be with agency owners, because then I can understand what is the trend that they're following, especially in this economy, right? Like agents, when I was in a mastermind call in December with agency owners and I heard this same thing that I was feeling, I was like, I found my people. Like I found those struggles identified with that everybody got hit so hard in August, September, October. They were like, this wave came out of nowhere and people are easily cutting marketing budgets right now. They're cutting these extra agencies that they've hired. So I think I just wish I would have realized early on that there is a distinct difference between being an educator and being a service provider.
That is huge. And yeah, they're definitely different business models for sure.
Yeah.
So what are you working on right now? And what are you excited about in the next 1 to 3 years with your agency?
Yeah, I think there's two things. One, I think I'm starting to think about, okay, what does it look like to land the plane of the agency? Is this something that I don't think it's going to be passed down to my kids or anything like that? So, what does it look like to have an exit plan? Not necessarily that I want to always execute on that exit plan, but at least have a target in mind. And then I think number two is current economy and where we're at. What does it look like for people to say yes to Pinterest marketing and that investment when it's not something that there's no quick wins in Pinterest marketing. Like it's the same with Google SEO. It's you build it, you plant it, you nurture it. And so figuring out how do we communicate with customers, because I grew on referrals. I grew on word of mouth. I have a podcast. It was very easy for me to get clients. And now I'm learning that there's a lot more work in that. So really putting myself in positions that say, how can I be educated about what good lead gen looks like, and not in the LinkedIn pitching nonstop kind of way that I see all the time. But how can I really find the clients that I want to work with, find the clients that I want to see their success, and communicate that in a way. And then I think also understanding who I am as an agency owner and realizing I am a creator too. I love creating podcast content or video content. And I'm not so much a digital marketer. So if you put any ads in front of me, I'm just like zone out. Right. And that I think is a lot of learning who your identity is and what you like and what you don't like as an agency. So I see the next 1 to 3 years as further development of me and being confident in, yes, I'm good at this. Nope, I'm not good at this. And I have a choice in the not good to hire somebody pending cash flow, or to say it's just not important. And that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So the next 1 to 3 years, I think are going to be interesting, if you will.
Well, awesome. Well, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, or do you have any offers for them they could take advantage of?
Yeah, actually on our website, simplepinmedia.com, we have kind of like this encyclopedia of Pinterest marketing just for people to get an understanding of what it is and what it can do for their business or even their clients. So going there, just checking things out. We got a ton of free resources. You can book a discovery call, obviously, with us too. Another way is the podcast. So we've been doing our podcast now for 7 years, which is crazy, talking all about Pinterest. And I love it. So if you want to get an idea of how we teach what we're kind of working through, that has a huge, don't start at the beginning because Pinterest has changed since then, but start at the most recent and work through and just see what it's all about, and don't overlook it for the other platforms that feel flashy, because I think Pinterest still drives so much traffic for people. It's kind of this foundational platform that's easily forgotten, but it's such a workhorse for businesses in the background. So you can really focus on other platforms too as well.
Cool. And for anybody that's listening, I'll put the links to Kate in the show notes. And Kate, I just want to thank you very much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been great to chat about this.
Agency owners, if you want to transform your agency to sustain and grow without your direct involvement, where you can stop working in the business and switch to working on the business, where you can regain control of your time, delegate effectively, get paid what you're worth, and have your team run the day-to-day, go to nicheincontrol.com/case study right now to learn more about Leverage for Growth. You can book a free strategy session with us to look at your systems, understand what needs to be done in order for you to scale, and get a free strategic plan for the next year to live the life of entrepreneurship that you've always dreamed about. Go to nicheincontrol.com/case study. That is nicheincontrol.com/case study now.